Welcome to my channel. In this video, we are introduced with a science magic which is known but cannot explained. We only describe it, which wrote a totally different script of nature. Yes, it is young double slit experiment. It was invented in 1801, but true explanation was done after 100 years. To understand the experiment, we will try to understand the experiment into 4 phases: experiment with bullet, experiment with wave, experiment with electron, and next watching the electron. Now experiment with bullet. A gun-fired bullet that it is always arriving in lumps. A slit which is made of armor plate that has 2 holes. Beyond the slit is a backstop, maybe a wall of wood. In the front of the wall, a movable object, maybe a box filled with sand, called detector, by which we can count how many bullets hit on the certain position. We measure the probability of arriving the bullet as a function of x, that is, how many bullet is absorbed by the detector in a certain point divided by the total number of bullet fired. We measure probability because bullet fired randomly and we have no clue where the bullet goes, and we get the following probability curve for hole 1 and hole 2, and we get P12 probability distribution curve when both holes are open, and we get the important result: P12 equals to P1 plus P2. Now experiment with wave. A small object labeled wave source juggled up and down by a motor and makes circular wave. To the right of the source we have again a slit with 2 holes, and beyond is a wall, is an absorber which absorbs all the wave and does not reflect any wave. In the front there is a detector which can move back and forth in the x direction. The detector is now a device which measures the intensity of the wave motion. We can measure the height of the wave motion, whose scale is so calibrated to the square of the actual height, so the reading is proportional to the intensity of the wave. As our detector reads the rate at which energy is carried to the detector, so square term is introduced. Now let us measure the wave intensity of various values of x for 2 holes when one is open and one is closed. We observe the original wave at each hole is diffracted and get a very simple probability distribution curve like bullet. But I12 is interesting. I12 is not equal to I1 plus I2. Instead, I12 equals to H1 plus H2 square, where amplitude equals to H1 plus H2. We say that there is interference of the 2 waves. At some place where the curve 1, 2 has its maximum, the waves are in phase and wave peaks together to give large amplitude and therefore large intensity. We say that the 2 waves are interfering constructively. Such interference occurs when a distance from the detector to the hole is a whole number of wavelength than the distance from the detector to the other hole. If it is odd number of half wavelength, then the 2 waves interfere destructively and we get low intensity. Now, if we expand I12 equals to H1 plus H2 square equals to H1 square plus H2 square plus 2H1 H2 cos alpha. So I12 equals to I1 plus I2 plus 2 root I1 I2 cos alpha. The last term is the interference term and alpha is the phase difference between 2 waves. So intensity can have any value depends on alpha. Now an experiment with electron. As wave, similar experimental result is observed when we use source as an electron gun. That is, there is an interference of electron particle. Electron goes in lump. That is, there is no question of half electron. How can we explain this strange phenomena if we consider electron is a small particleized bullet? Many attempts have been made to explain the mechanism to show the phenomena, like complicated path may be taken by the electron, but all are fail. But its mathematics is simple, written below. So we conclude electron alive in lumps. When one hole is open, other is blocked, we get the probability like bullet. That is P12 equals to P1 plus P2. When two holes open, it behaves like wave. That is P12 not equals to P1 plus P2. It is in the sense electron behaves something like a particle and something like a wave. Another conclusion is that we cannot say electron goes either hole 1 or hole 2. It is not true, because number of arriving at a particular point is not equal to the number that arrive through hole 1 plus the number arriving through hole 2. We conclude it is not true that the electron goes either through hole 1 or hole 2. Now, watching the electron. This part is even more exciting. In the same experimental setup, we add a very strong light source behind the slit, and we know that the electric charge scattered light. So when electron pass, it scattered some light, so we detect it which hole it comes from. When we detect this, we always observe that it is come from either hole 1 or hole 2, but never both at once. So we conclude that when you look at the electron, we find that the electron goes either hole 1 or hole 2. So why is not P12 not equals to P1 plus P2? Here is the most exciting statement that I have ever made. When we track the electron path by air scattering of light, we no longer get the interference. When we turn out the light and don't track the path, we get interference. Since now no one can find any mechanism how subatomic particle display this property, that's how nature really works. So we conclude when we look at the electron, the distribution of them on the screen is different than when we don't look. Explanation is that by trying to watch the electron, we have changed their motion. When a photon is scattered by an electron, it is such as to change the electron's motion enough so that if it might have gone to where P12 was at maximum, it will instead land where P12 was minimum. That is why we no longer see the wave interference effect. That has a very beautiful name, collapse of wave function. So lastly, it is impossible to arrange any apparatus in such a way that can tell which hole the electron went through without disturbing the pattern. That was suggested by Heisenberg as a new law of nature, which is mathematically delta x multiplied delta px is greater than equals to h by 4 pi, where delta x and delta px are canonically conjugated variables, which means if we know canonically conjugated variables, we have all the information of any system. The complete theory of quantum mechanics is based on Heisenberg uncertainty principle. If we want to beat the uncertainty principle, quantum mechanics would give inconsistent result and we have to be discarded it as a valid theory of nature. This is open challenge to each and every scientist. Let's try to break it.